Member for Nedlands.
Thank you, Deputy Speaker, and I congratulate you on your appointment.
Thank you.
I rise today for my inaugural speech as the Member for Nedlands. In my remarks, I'll make some thanks to my team, most of whom are here, describe Liberal values and the influence in my life, the Liberal story of achievement in Australia and Western Australia, the burden of freedom which comes with that, talk about the Nedlands electorate, and finish with our path to government in 2029. I rise today with profound gratitude to the people of Nedlands for placing your trust in me. Your prosperity is my life's work now, and this is a noble civic quest. I will work every day to honour the task that you have set me. To my campaign team, David Dwyer, my chairman, Fiona Plant, my campaign manager and now my electoral officer, Ryan the treasurer, Kathy Rock, my rock, John McCourt, my media advisor, and to many other people including Patrick, Howard Croxon, Alan Austin, Tony Mandan, Hugh Shedden, and of course my brother Michael, who everyone still confuses, has finally got elected to the Member for Nedlands. Thank you as well to the hundreds of booth workers, event organisers, and really the donors who made this incredible zero-start social enterprise possible. Your friendship, energy, and belief in me and our country enabled this 12-month monumental task to succeed. To my fellow candidates, I acknowledge and thank your commitment to our local democracy. The Nedlands campaign was very civil, very kind, very respectful. I made friends with many of the candidates, most especially Mary Monkhouse, who was a delightful person. I also thank the WA Electoral Commission, who in our case conducted a very worthy electoral process. To Katrina Stratton, who was my predecessor, your standing in the Nedlands community is respected and much admired. I'd also like to congratulate you, Premier, on the emphatic win that you scored most recently. I'd also like to thank and acknowledge my Liberal colleagues, most especially Basil, my leader, and Libby, but really our wonderful new friends on the National Party, who I'm so glad to have met and understand we are developing a very strong, positive team. I'd also like to pay respect to the giants on whose shoulders I stand, the Nedlands giants, Sir Charles Court, Richard Court, father and son premiers, and Mr Bill Marmion. You are very welcome to this today, as all of you are welcome to the Nedlands electorate. Thank you for your advice, Bill and Richard, and thank you for your presence on working on polling day. I'd like to thank my family, that's Kathy and our modern family of 5 adult children now making their way, and my sadly deceased parents, both taken by cancer so young, whose patience, faith and sacrifice brought me to this place. My 7 brothers and sisters, and my mates, who I've shared this journey. Mr Speaker, in the late 1820s, word went out that a new venture across the seas was bound for the west coast of Australia. In June 1829, our colony of free settlers arrived not as a prison colony, but as a daring experiment in freedom, an open land for free people, built on the principles of self-determination, individual initiative and private property. No one told them what to do. They adapted. Our state was founded by settlers who did not ask for comfort and certainty. They sought only liberty and the chance to forge their own destiny. They also learned, perhaps too slowly and perhaps very imperfectly, from the Noongar people, how to preserve the beauty and tranquility of the dreaming that was already here. From the gold rush to the wheat belt and from C.Y. O'Connor's pipeline to iron ore exports, The story of WA is one of enterprising people acting freely with dignity under law, and a lean law that would only guide development. From the 1850s through the post-war decades, West Australians fought, built, carved and created. The West Australian Anzacs of Gallipoli, Bullecourt, Tobruk, Brigade Hill, Capion and Long Tan demonstrated that liberty is worth sacrifice. Having left Europe because of class rigidity, they went back twice voluntarily to save it. What a price we paid, what a mark they made. Robert Menzies created the Liberal Party in 1942. Let's be clear, he was then an outcast. Curtin had the running. Menzies, in fact, party had disintegrated. When elected, though, he built a nation after the war. He gave Australians not collectivism, but confidence that prosperity and fairness comes from empowering individuals. Menzies, Brand and Court unleashed the forgotten people by catapulting them from using their own sense of self-belief. Home ownership was the key. We faltered only when we turned away from these liberal values, thinking government knows better. These ideas are not abstract to me, they are deeply personal. I grew up in a very big family, one of 8 children, in Applecross, 6 boys and 2 girls. What I learned early was that opportunity without initiative is hollow, is that leadership without service is barren. My father was a PMG engineer and my mother stayed at home. We were middle-class Australia. They called themselves Liberals, as did all families then. Conservative was not a word that they or I associate with. At Aquinas College, I was honoured to serve as college captain, and then in that year, the West Australian Youth of the Year, where Richard, I met your father for the Way 79 celebrations. Do some of you remember it? What a year of celebration, that 150th that Sir Charles created. I want to express my eternal thanks to the Christian brothers at Aquinas who gave their lives to our service and development. They worked for nothing but our individual success. But, Member for Bassendean, I truly acknowledge and recognise the issues that you raised with regards to Christian brothers. It just wasn't my own personal experience, but that's not to deny the wonderful work that you've done. I sensed, though, that there was a big world out there, so I chose a very different career route. At barely 16 years of age, I signed up to go to the Army for 9 years via Duntroon. My 4 years at the Royal Military College Duntroon in Canberra, I was barely 17, were incredibly difficult. But these were different times. I adapted with the help of wonderful classmates who then went on to be fellow officers, some of whom rallied back to my campaign, and thank you, Craig. We got through. I served as an infantry and intelligence officer. I would like to stop for a minute, relevant to my portfolio that Mr Zemplis has given me to serve veterans, as I will do with Mr Papalia, who is a veteran himself. I want to thank that cohort, that wonderful cohort of Vietnam veterans who were my drill sergeants and platoon sergeants, hard men who had just come out of the jungle, who had not been welcomed home. What a miscarriage that was. But addressed by a Labor government in 1987, thank you, DALP, for bringing those men home and taking what was very tragic and then making it very wonderful. You probably also saved many lives. My first task as an intelligence officer was to complete a 100% infrastructure audit of the Kimberley. I was a young lieutenant. What a job I had, visiting every station and every microwave tower. In the event of an invasion or military operations, we had to know exactly what was where and when, or how much. I served as 3 aides-de-camps, ADCs as we call them, the guy that walks around with the aguilette, including General Murray Blake, and a great West Australian, and Mike Jeffrey. Stay with someone like that for a year by their side, you learn a great deal. I was learning from the best in the business, mostly good, but sometimes not so good. As a young captain, I was seconded to work in Nick Griner's office in the post ran Unsworth, New South Wales, as most of the ministerial secretariats had been stacked out, well, we know, with their people. But I'd like to thank Gary West for taking me into his office. He was the member for Orange. I was learning the juxtaposition between civil and military affairs. Now, as a Major, I returned back to serve with the Canadian National Defence Headquarters, working on Warsaw Pact exercises for their brigade in Europe, and then as the Australian Exchange Officer at the Defence Intelligence and Security School in Ashford, Kent. There I was assisting in operational training for around British operations in Northern Ireland, including visits to that theatre that I don't wish to expand upon. Unfortunately, tragedy struck in the 1990s. In the space of 2 years, I lost both my parents to cancer at the age of 59. Our family basically imploded. But this was also a message to get on with life. I knew it was time to move on. I never saw myself as a career military officer, and also to come home, raise a family and build a house. First, very quickly, I returned back to Aquinas, where I did some very groundbreaking work in the transition of that from an order-run school to more like a commercial hybrid school for boys. And I'm so proud of that institution today. You might probably look at that today and think that's quite an elite organisation, but really back in the 70s and 80s, there was a lot of boys that went there that didn't even pay any fees. Leaving that behind then, so then from nowhere, I was asked to become the General Manager of Tintercar at the age of 35, the biggest window tinting business in the world. 3 months later, I put an offer in to buy it for $18 million. I hardly had a cent to my name. And I conducted one of the first pure management buyouts in Western Australia. Like those settlers who came here, no one told me what to do, I didn't go to the government, I made it up as I went along and I took a chance. In business, I saw the dignity that comes with free enterprise, the courage of the small business owner, many of whom were my franchisees, over 150 of them in both Croissant Express and Tintercar. They mortgaged their home, as did I, to build their dream. This is going all in. If I go down, the family's going down. It's a heavy burden, and it's a very big price to pay. But thousands upon thousands upon thousands of Australians do this every year, year on year. After we sold Tintercar, I and the bank purchased the Croissant Express chain. Some of you might know that. Then Parkside Tow Bars. I was transitioning from a military life to a deeply commercial life. Each time my home was mortgaged and pledged to security, each time the bank was paid ahead of time. Respectfully, gentlemen, ladies and gentlemen, this is not the same as being a director or an advisor. What do you do as an owner when your entire welding team at Parkside Tow Bars walks up to you and asks for a 100% pay rise, or they're off to the mines the next week? That's your entire business about to collapse. Do you call a directors' meeting? What do you do when you're in Allendale Square, Croissant Express shop, some of you might have remembered it, and an 8-year backup of putrid brown sewage, which had been treated on Saturday, suddenly unblocks at Monday at 12 o'clock, rushes down 35 floors and comes up into the floor of your Croissant Express shop in Allendale Square as people are coming in, right on time for lunch, 3 inches deep. What do you do? Do you call the government? Do you call a board meeting? It's up to you. What do you do when the Australian dollar falls to 48 cents, which it did, and you buy all your window film from the United States, meaning your margin is just vaporised? Do I call the Treasurer of the Reserve Bank? Do I call for the directors of my accountant? What do you do when I saw workers in Bali in wretched, dangerous conditions working with no PPE at all? I acted as their union and protested to their employers who were indifferent, maybe something that you experience. So I started a foundation called the Hard Hat Foundation to provide free PPE to workers in Bali and Timor, and over 1,000 sets of hard hats and high-vis were provided free of charge to workers in Bali so they could be safe on work sites. Hopefully this is not sounding like a capitalist, but someone who deeply cares about their workers and their environment. And what was that about us not knowing the needs of workers, I heard yesterday? These problems that I describe, they belong to the lonely heroes, the business owner locking up her shop tonight, the guy backing in his ute tonight at 9 p.m, who has to reach up deep into his reserves of initiative and resilience, smile as he walks in the door, goes to sleep with a bag of cement in his guts as he's wondering how he's going to make next week work. What will happen if it rains? Will I be able to get those jobs done? Will my workers leave and go somewhere else? And they do this every day of the week. Christmas is often the worst time. You're trying to be the absolute best as the dad or mum unwrapping presents, but your staff are all on holiday. You've got no revenue coming into Australia Day. You've got a massive spike in expenses with insurance often due on January 1. GST is due in February. Your home mortgage and your business mortgage is due. It's a lonely world. What do you do when the minimum wage goes up or super creeps up 0.5%? Where's that increment going to come from? How are you going to fund that? Maybe even on a farm as well. Owners actually do want to help their workers. They do want to give them all those things, and in many cases they can't even avoid it. But then they think, if I put my prices up to offset that, I could lose customers. It's a risk. I'm in a tight position the way it is. You know what they mostly do? They take the financial hit themselves. Most do, and they don't tell their partners and their families and their wives, and they brave it out. Would we all do that here? Would we all do that if the parliamentary staff had to increase and we had to fund that, or we would just think that's someone else's responsibility to deal with? Can I have an extension, please? Extension granted. This, Mr Speaker and ladies and gentlemen, is very real. I say to the people of Nedlands and WA, the shopkeepers, contractors and tradies, you now have someone in your corner. I am walking with you, and thank you, Basil, for assigning me that task of looking after and tracing every legislation through the eyes, and I'll seek the opinion of those businesses so you can help me help you. Full marks to the government this week, by the way. Just in my very first week, you deregulated the Architects Board, devolving authority to the architects themselves. Thank you. Keep it up. You're learning very fast. More of that, please. Basil and Libby, I couldn't believe my luck in my first week as the deregulation spokesman. Let's get to the nub of this. If I was given the task or the choice of doing something which was centrally efficient or doing something which is devolved to individuals, I'll take the latter every time, because it means individuals have skin in the game, and over, individuals are unbeatable. On the other hand, if you control it from the centre, you will breed a complacent, languid and torpid Orwellian approach, and this is where we find ourselves now. Let's now change tack and talk about the burden of freedom that Liberals carry. I've also touched on this already. I'm not saying that every single person has the wherewithal and life skills to reach the level of prosperity or risk that I did. Maybe I was lucky with the way I was brought up, and it's just not reasonable to think everybody can do that. But whatever scaled-down version of independence is with your capability, I say step forward. You might be a musician or a graphic artist. All we care about is that you shape your environment, you don't be shaped by it. That is the fundamental aspect of liberalism. But what do we liberal individualists do with the freedoms and maybe their wealth? The answer is we Liberals understand that freedom is also a burden. What about those even more forgotten people They can't make that step. Do we just discard them, as sometimes we're accused? Did we ever discard them? This is often the counterattack made on liberalism by the left. No, we don't discard them. We share, we offer a hand, we reach down and lift. For over a century, Liberals have introduced targeted and needs-based support through limited government. The focus was always on the vulnerable, but never to embed a permanent status on welfare. We recognise that there are many who need a hand up or for some other act of God need simple protection. Ladies and gentlemen, Liberals introduced child endowment to ease the financial burden on country. Liberals granted voting rights to Indigenous Australians in 1962, a turning point that I've long denied. Liberals gave parental choice in education, ensuring that Catholic and independent schools not only survived but flourished in the public system. Liberals created the Commonwealth Scholarship Scheme to break the privilege barriers of tertiary education. Liberals created the ANU, the CSIRO, the Australian Atomic Energy Commission, the Council for the Arts, the National Gallery, the Australian Ballet, the Office of Aboriginal Affairs in 1967 and the Australian Human Rights Commission in 1981. And here in the West, with Richard Court, his father, did they take the process of mining and put it in someone's pocket? No, they established the Disability Services Commission, the Mental Health Commission. Many of these things could have been done by their predecessors, but they were not. Finally, I think the best one, the one that's on Sir Richard Court's memorial plaque down on St George's Terrace. The most basic of human needs was legal aid. And often in a David and Goliath situation, the forgotten person didn't have access to fair legal representation. But it was the Liberal Party in Western Australia that created legal aid, which is now rolled out through the country as a national standard. It started right here. Roll gold Liberal Party social policy. And lastly, internationally, Liberals advocated for a free and independent Timor, standing by for the self-determination and liberty abroad. So we exported our form of liberalism as well. We deployed our army in a humanitarian cause, mobilised the world and created a nation from nothing. Then we left, so the Timorese people could decide how they wanted to run their affairs. This is what we mean when we refer to the dignity of the individual and the burden of freedom, which I've listed. All of it was targeted, focused on those who could not help themselves. Many of it was created after a Labor government. I do not deny the great achievements of your party, Premier, which are impressive. A similar list in education and health, but do not represent the scale of the Liberal fidelity to the forgotten people of Australia. These were deliberate acts of freedom. They prove that society comes through individual empowerment with graduated support to never build, or hopefully never build, dependency and entitlement. I wish to now pay tribute to the electorate of Nedlands in the time I've got available, that special corner of Perth where you're in now, which I'm so fortunate to represent. From 1832, it was called Captain Edward Ned Hall's farm, Ned's land. Thus it became Nedlands. The electorate I now represent was formed in 1930 and includes Crawley, Nedlands, Dalkeith, Claremont, Shenton Park, Subiaco, Daglish, Hollywood, Jolimont and West Perth. Nedlands is more than a leafy suburb. It's a living testament to the Australian dream, where hard work builds a home and freedom has built a community. To the south we have the Swan River, to the east Kings Park in its majesty. These are not just landscapes, they are symbols of our identity. We love it that people from all over the state, the country and the world come to Nedlands. We are home of the University of Western Australia, the Sir Charles Gardner Hospital, Hollywood Hospital, Bob Hawke College and Perth Modern, and many other places, particularly medical specialists. We are home to volunteers, artists, entrepreneurs, scientists. This is a society that gives back. As many of you know, certainly on my side, I door-knocked every single street in Nedlands during the election campaign, spoke to over 5,000 Nedlands residents. I will fight to uphold property rights, local decision-making and civic pride in every planning decision and government policy. I'd like to address some local issues just for a moment. Private property rights are core to our understanding of Liberal values. Nedlands residents understand the need for more density. They just want it done in sympathy and harmony for their existing property. The density debate, though, is a symptom of a much wider population. Immigrants like all of us, I think, are going to keep coming. We must now, as we approach our bicentenary, hark back to those original decisions made in the colonial office back in the 1820s. It's time for us now to have our own Newcastle, Wollongong or Geelong. This will take great investment and time and incentives, but we need to think about a new city or cities for Western Australia. It's the nature of human development over thousands of years. We shouldn't be any different. And this leads me to the next 200 years and our bicentennial in 2029. We look to 2029, the bicentennial of the Swan River Colony, as like, and I'd like to propose an agenda for that, to give these real values. This story I've told you is not a history lesson. I'm talking about, as I said, propelling liberalism forward into the next 200 years by empowering individuals, expanding their school choices. I congratulate some of the things that have been done by the government, particularly around housing affordability. I thought the granny flat reforms were fantastic. We need to revitalise free enterprise, competition and productivity. We need to do work on payroll tax reform. I look forward to working with the member for Mandurah and chairman as we co-chair the committee together. Let's keep paying our contractors on time. Let's pay them in 28 days. It's very vital for their cash flow. Let's have a lean and accountable government. I assure you, over the next 4 years, I don't say much in this chamber, you might have noticed, because I'm working away, line by line, government by department, to audit each and every one. Ladies and gentlemen, we also need to develop a sustainable, free, natural and cultural environment and strengthen our civil society. Ladies and gentlemen, the time for timidity is over. Let us raise up the individual, unleash the entrepreneur, trust the family and reassert the primacy of the citizen over the state. Let us show the corner of the world that freedom still burns brightly here. To the people of Nedlands, I will serve you. To my colleagues, I will fight for our values. To the future, I will not flinch. As we prepare for Australia's bicentenary and 2029, and hopefully our victory, I ask, what kind of society do we want to celebrate? What do we want to leave behind? Our path should be guided in the future by liberal values that we believe, written by men and women who understand that freedom is not a gift from government but the birthright of every person. We believe in Australia's place in the world as a beacon of democracy, of the rules-based international order and a reliable trading partner for our long-term customers. These are liberal values lived daily. Let us stand together for freedom, for opportunity and for a Western Australia worthy of its history and destiny. I stand before you, the people of Nedlands, your humble servant. Thank you.